To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, we welcome you in live. The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We got a lot to dive into. Coming up here today, the Cincinnati Reds unfortunately lose their fourth straight. They are 4 games back in the NL Central, 3 games back in the wild card. I feel like morale is at an all-time low, which is saying something, because I feel like the Reds have caused us to say that on quite a few occasions, but we'll get into that coming up here in just a bit. We'll talk about the Cleveland Browns and Shedeur Sanders. They're doing something with Shedeur that I find very, very interesting, and I'm actually kind of a fan of it, because I think the biggest question mark about Shedeur Sanders, although there are question marks about his ability to play the quarterback position in the NFL, there are more questions about how his personality fits in the NFL more so than his skill set. And we're going to talk about something that the Cleveland Browns are doing to help kind of nip that in the bud a little bit as we get things going for his early Browns career. Nonetheless, let's see what else. The Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals, they've made a couple interesting roster moves over the last week. They have restructured some contracts to free up money. Now, you would think that if you're freeing up money, with Zach Moss last week, they freed up a couple $1 million last week. They just freed up $1.5 million by reworking the contract yesterday. I'm just kind of curious, if you're freeing up all that money, if you're trying to create some space to go make a move, what are you creating that space for? What's the goal for the Cincinnati Bengals in regards to freeing up that cap space? Is it just something as simple as taking care of Trey Hendrickson, something that if they were going to do should have been done a long time ago? Or are they just doing it to sit on the money, something that's been pretty frustrating as far as that's concerned for a lot of Bengals fans when it's all said and done? But we'll talk about that more coming up here in just a moment. Geno Stone, again, freeing up $100 million and a half, I should say, with that reworked contract. As far as that goes, we'll get into the AFC North. AFC North for quite some time has been the best division in the NFL. Is it still considered that? We'll talk about that, because the Pittsburgh Steelers are making some interesting moves. I can't tell if the Pittsburgh Steelers are making moves to rebuild. I can't tell if they're making moves to free a cancer from a locker room. I'm not really sure what the Pittsburgh Steelers did, but news that kicked off the day in the world of sports, the Pittsburgh Steelers end up sending George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys for a 3rd-round pick. Now, the interesting thing is, I'm not really sure who won that trade. Yes, the Pittsburgh Steelers end up getting a 3rd-round pick in return for George Pickens, but at the same time, you get rid of George Pickens, you do have DK Metcalf, but that's all you have. I mean, when you really think about what the Pittsburgh Steelers are left with, here's what they have. Your quarterback as of right now is Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph will be handing the ball off to Caleb Johnson and Jalen Warren this upcoming season. Not the worst running backs in the world, but no one's fearing that run game. No one fears that offensive line of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mason Rudolph will be throwing the ball to DK Metcalf. He'll also be throwing the ball to Robert Woods, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller, and Ben Schorenek. They do have the tight end and Pat Freiermuth. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I don't think that that does not signal to me a winning move. The Steelers were not super aggressive in free agency. I like their 1st-round pick in the draft on the defensive side, but it's not as if they, I don't think they turned their roster around in the draft either. I find Pittsburgh to be a fascinating story right now, because I don't know what that move meant by moving on from George Pickens earlier today. If you are trying to lure Aaron Rodgers to pick your situation over retirement, getting rid of one of your top wide receivers doesn't seem to be appealing to Aaron Rodgers, or at least it shouldn't, right? Like, why would that make Aaron Rodgers excited? I was actually really intrigued by the prospect of Aaron Rodgers going to Pittsburgh and throwing the football to DK Metcalf and George Pickens, because, Aaron Rodgers Whether you think he could still play or not, you would have found out right away, especially because it would have been no, there would have been no shortage of weapons as far as that's concerned. But without George Pickens and only DK Metcalf, how good is this Pittsburgh offense? I think it's worse than Cleveland's. If Cleveland goes out this season with a rookie tight end, 2 rookie running backs, a rookie quarterback, they're still better offensively than the Pittsburgh Steelers as of right now. Offense-wise, I can't say Cleveland's better than Pittsburgh only because Pittsburgh, we do this every year. We talk about an underwhelming roster. Their quarterback situation always stinks. They're not the sexiest offensive roster ever, but then they somehow, some way find a way to win 9-10 games. And the next thing you know, we're talking about another playoff appearance for Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, we also talk about a very quick playoff exit because the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't really very good in regards to the competitive nature that they have when they get to the playoffs when it's all said and done. I find that move very interesting. Who won that deal? The Dallas Cowboys. On paper, I like that. I like Dak Prescott dropping back to throw, of course, to CeeDee Lamb and, of course, George Pickens. But let me ask you, what was the last attitude problem-filled wide receiver that left Pittsburgh that would go on to have success? And forget wide receiver, just player in general. Every time a player has left Pittsburgh disgruntled, they never resurrect their career anywhere else. Yes, Antonio Brown would go on to win a Super Bowl, but my goodness, Antonio Brown never once looked with the Patriots or the Raiders or even the Buccaneers, who he spent the majority of the time with once he finally got settled in. He never looked the part again. He never looked like Antonio Brown in Tampa. He never looked like Antonio Brown with the Raiders or the Patriots. He just never really got his career going again. He was the most talented, but he can never get out of his own way. How about, you want to keep Chase Claypool. Claypool, I thought was a good up-and-coming wide receiver for Pittsburgh. It looked like they had a very good young core. He left, never resurrected his career. Horrible, right? I actually thought he was a good addition to the Chicago Bears for Justin Fields a few years ago, and that ended up not working out either. Deontay Johnson, he is a Bengals appearance short of completing his AFC North tour. He just signed with the Cleveland Browns for a 1-year team-friendly deal as he's trying to resurrect it. He's been horrible since he left Pittsburgh as well. He did not work out, obviously, last year with the Panthers. He ends up getting released later on in the season. I can't remember if he was released or traded. The bottom line is the Panthers moved on from him. He goes to the Ravens, a prime situation to play in a solid wide receiver room, have an MVP quarterback throwing you the football, and play in a Super Bowl contender. And he just refused to go into a game because he didn't like the lack of looks and touches he was getting. Horrible attitude. It's never worked out since. Ron in the chat. How are you, Ron? Ron says Bell. Yeah, Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell's another one. Le'Veon Bell, to be fair, I liked Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell wasn't like a head case. Le'Veon Bell just truly felt that the usage rate of how he was being utilized within the offense, he wasn't being paid as such. One of the best running backs in the NFL during that stretch, but was also one of the most dynamic pass catchers as well out of the backfield. He said, if you're going to continue to utilize me as a wide receiver and as a running back, I would like to be paid as such. You can't just label me a running back, pay me a running back fee, but utilize me as a pass catcher and get wide receiver type production. I understood where Le'Veon Bell was coming from, and ultimately stuck to his guns. And he was one of the few athletes that was willing to sit out and sit out, not just hold out, but sit out. He held out throughout training camp. They thought, like most players, right? They'll call his bluff and he may miss a game or two, but he'll ultimately, put his helmet on and play. He never did. I liked Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell was never the same again. Every player that leaves Pittsburgh never returns to form. So how good is George Pickens? We're going to find out in Dallas. If George Pickens, if it really was just a not a good spot for him in Pittsburgh from a mental health standpoint, and he likes where he's at in Dallas and things are going well in the Big D, you know what? He could, that Dallas offense could be pretty explosive if Dak and everyone's healthy. But I like the prospect. I like the idea of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens together in Dallas, but it is what it is. But that was the big news out of football today. Impact, as far as the AFC North is concerned, which we'll talk more about the AFC North coming up here in a little bit. Who won that trade? We won't find out until we find out if, he ends up going to, if George Pickens goes to Dallas and balls out, obviously Dallas wins that. I don't see how if you're Pittsburgh, you won that trade because you are not better right now. You're trying to compete this upcoming season. You just made your roster worse. Oh, but they got a third-round draft pick. Well, draft picks are for teams who are rebuilding, right? I mean, good teams have to draft well and keep adding to the cabinet. I get that, but at the same time, this team's trying to compete now. Why are the Pittsburgh Steelers just content with being every single season? Every single year, the Pittsburgh Steelers are just content with being okay, with being average, being a 9-10 win team. When you miss the playoffs, you miss the playoffs by a game, but you're 9-8. When you make the playoffs, you're a 9-10 win team, but you get knocked out in the first round. When are you going to show that desperation move that you are trying to compete to win a Super Bowl? That move ain't it. I thought they were pretty damn close. When they went out and got DK Metcalf, I was like, okay, Pittsburgh, all right. You know, you have to be explosive offensively to compete in the AFC North. When you look at Lamar Jackson and you look at that explosive running/passing offense that the Ravens, that attack that they have over in Baltimore, obviously Joe Burrow throws for 4,800 yards, 40-plus touchdowns, a Triple Crown wide receiver in Jamar Chase, and, a number one wide receiver as their number two wide receiver in T. Higgins. Yeah, that's a pretty damn explosive offense, too. How do you fight fire? How do you fight? You have to fight fire with fire. And that's what Pittsburgh, I thought, was doing when they went out to get DK Metcalf and trying to align themselves to get Aaron Rodgers. I don't see how you get Aaron Rodgers moving on from George Pickens at this point. And maybe Aaron Rodgers has let the Pittsburgh Steelers know that he's not interested in joining the Steelers. And maybe they've said, well, we're not going to keep DK Metcalf and George Pickens from Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Moving on from George Pickens today, the Steelers, I don't know who they are. They're either throwing in the towel because you have Mason Rudolph as your quarterback, or they have a bigger plan in mind. They have 12 draft picks next season. They have a first, a second. They have 4 third-round picks, 3 third-round picks, 3 fourth-round picks, multiple 5s in the 6th and the 7th round. Next year is a quarterback deep draft. They have draft capital galore. I mean, the Steelers would be in a position to still try and compete this upcoming season, but they have the draft capital to move up and grab a quarterback if they so well please. Maybe that's their mentality. The other mentality could be maybe they go and try to get a Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill just had surgery earlier today. It's a minor surgery. It's nothing major. We'll be back and ready to go by training camp. But he's trying to push himself out of Miami. You know, he just put out his top 5 quarterback list, and for the first time, he releases it every year around this time. He did not include his own quarterback in Tua. He does not think that his own quarterback is a top 5 QB in the league, despite the fact that for the last 2 years has done nothing but praise Tua and say how he is the best quarterback in the league. Clearly, he's disgruntled. Clearly, he wants out. Pittsburgh has the draft capital. Maybe George Pickens, who's very talented, also a potential lightning rod in that locker room. They decided to move on from him. Maybe they use some of that draft capital to bundle it up and go try to pull Tyreek Hill out of Miami. Who knows? But they're either going to go hard after Tyreek Hill with the Dolphins, or they are just going to settle, accrue those, sit on those draft picks and position themselves to improve at quarterback next season. I don't see why Aaron Rodgers would want to go to Pittsburgh at this point. Aaron Rodgers makes no sense in Pittsburgh. I mean, like I said, can you imagine? Okay, replace Mason Rudolph. Aaron Rodgers would be handing the ball off to Caleb Johnson and Jalen Warren. Aaron Rodgers would be throwing the ball to DK Metcalf. That sounds great. But Aaron Rodgers to DK Metcalf and Robert Woods, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller. What are we doing? Aaron Rodgers struggled last season in an offense that I think is significantly better than what he would be for the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point. They have a shaky offensive line. That run game nobody respects. And outside of DK Metcalf, that wide receiver room is a joke. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to Pittsburgh. He's just not. All right, it's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Yes, I spend a lot of time on Pittsburgh right there, but I tell people all the time, when something happens to the Ravens, as a Browns fan, you guys Bengals fans, the Ravens, whatever happens with them impacts us. When the Bengals do something, it impacts me as a Browns fan. It impacts Steelers and Ravens fans. And the same thing, of course, with Pittsburgh. That impacts that impacts the Bengals. You play Pittsburgh twice every year. Obviously, you guys know this. I'm not trying to football explain you, but the bottom line is anything that happens to Pittsburgh happens to you. It happens to the Browns, Ravens, everybody in the division. Let's stick with the AFC North. Guys, is the AFC North still the best division in football? I mean, last year when we head into the season, Pittsburgh's always a super competitive team. Cleveland had playoff expectations last year. The Bengals had Super Bowl expectations. The Ravens had Super Bowl expectations. I don't know if you could say the same thing about the AFC North as a whole right now. How good is the AFC North? Is it still the best division in football? We'll discuss when we come back. More of the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers when we come back right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. All right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. 3:23 here in the Miami Valley. We got Reds baseball coming up later on tonight. The Reds have lost 4 straight, and they're trying to, end that 4-game losing streak by winning Game 3 against the Atlanta Braves tonight. And luckily, they do have Hunter Green on the mound, but to act like Hunter Green's going to save the day, let's not act like the Reds haven't been getting good quality pitching this season. They've got a lot of great quality pitching outings, including last night. I thought Andrew Abbott was fantastic last night. The pitching was not the problem for the Reds last night. Their inability to drive in runs is a little bit of a problem. So Hunter Green, obviously I expect a Hunter Green caliber night from him. But can this offense string together any kind of runs? They did make a couple roster adjustments today. We'll talk about that more coming up in a moment. But Reds have lost 4 straight. They try to put an end to that losing streak coming up here later on tonight. Game 3 between the Reds and the Braves. 6:45 coverage begins right here on 1410 ESPN Radio with the 7:15 first pitch. The Reds will wrap up this series with the Atlanta Braves tomorrow night with another 7:15 first pitch start. And then they'll immediately turn their attention, remaining on the road, and head to Houston, where they'll take on the Houston Astros. The Reds will not return home until May 13th, when they start a 3-game series with the Chicago White Sox. We'll also see the Reds take on and welcome in the Cleveland Guardians the weekend of the 16th, 17th, and 18th. And we'll be giving away tickets to that series as well between the Reds and the Guardians. Hopefully you guys still want to go by the time we get to that point. It's been a little bit of a rough go of it for the Reds, but we'll get into the Reds coming up more here just around the corner. Again, the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Stop on out at one of your local neighborhood Frickers for their Frickin' Lunch combos for $10.99. The Frickin' Lunch combo features many options such as Frickin' Chicken Chunks, cheeseburgers, the Charbroiled Chicken Wrap, and the Frickin' Chicken Wrap. You also get a side and a drink off for $10.99. The Frickin' Lunch combo is available Monday through Friday between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Dine in or carry out. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. The AFC North has been one of the most toughest, physical, in my opinion, best divisions in football for quite a few years now. Obviously, the Ravens have been a regular Super Bowl contender for quite a few years now. The Bengals have turned the corner, obviously, ever since drafting Joe Burrow, getting to a Super Bowl in year 2 of Joe Burrow's career, although they have missed the playoffs the last 2 seasons. Still, when you have the weapons that Joe Burrow has in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, you look at that offense and you think there's no way that this team would not have a chance at winning a Super Bowl. It all comes down to just how good this defense can be, how quick of a start, can they actually get off to a hot start in the month of September instead of trying to dig themselves out of a hole, which they always seem to regularly do. The Cleveland Browns, on the other hand, are a team that I thought even last year, I thought it was still a very, very good team last year. I mean, not being a homer, I was thrown off. I think a lot of people were. Even the biggest Browns homers would not have predicted a year ago at this time that the Browns would be selecting number 2 in this past year's draft. There's no way. I mean, a healthy Nick Chubb, a healthy David Njoku. If Amari Cooper regressed like you would never believe. If Amari Cooper's Amari Cooper, the Browns win a couple of those games early in the season. Deshaun Watson was just, goodness gracious, awful. I mean, it was just painful, right? Like, no one predicted that the Browns would be, you may not have predicted that they'd be a playoff team or, competing for a Super Bowl, but there's no way you thought that they were going to be a 3-4-win team picking number 2 overall in the 2025 NFL draft. But that's where they find themselves. And, you can look at that in a couple different ways. Obviously this team is pretty far off. The win total has them sitting at about 5.5 right now. Every prognosticator out there has no faith in the Browns, but I still look at this team that a year ago, a lot of people still had this team as a 9-10 win team. And they pretty much have a lot of the same weapons that they do this season. In fact, they added more weapons in the draft. You go get a Harold Fandon Jr. out of Bowling Green. You have 2 explosive running backs that you just got in the draft. You bring back pretty much the same defenses last year, which did regress. Not sure why that happened, because that's a loaded defensive line. It's a very good secondary. Obviously, I like what they did with both of their draft picks, adding more pass rushers and improving at linebacker. I'm not saying Cleveland's making the playoffs by any means, but their whole ceiling depends on how do their draft picks pan out. Draft picks being, most importantly, the quarterbacks. You do have Joe Flacco, but the Browns, what are their expectations? And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, we talked about it. They just moved on from George Pickens. This is a bad offensive roster. Mason Rudolph is not a good quarterback. I'm sorry, he's just not. That wide receiving core is god-awful. headlined by DK Metcalf, who's not god awful, but there's literally nothing behind him. The running backs don't scare anybody. The offensive line doesn't scare anybody. The Steelers' success all comes from their belief in their ability to go out and win football games, which has always gotten them by. They find ways to win. They grind it out. That defense is that defense, which, by the way, that defense was not good to start the season last year. Obviously, it improved as the season went along. Just how good is that defense? A lot of question marks in the AFC North. There's not a whole lot of security in the AFC North. You know, the Bengals, who everyone views as a Super Bowl contender, missed the playoffs the last 2 years. I was told last year at this time just how good this Bengals team was going to be. Well, then this exact Bengals roster goes and misses the playoff, and guess what? They've done nothing to improve this roster. It's the same damn non-playoff roster from a season ago. The Bengals aren't better today than what they were a season ago. They did not improve their roster. The Steelers are not better today than what they were a year ago. They got worse at quarterback. They got worse at wide receiver. They got worse in the run game. The Browns are not better today than what they were a year ago today from a roster perspective. They got very, very young. A lot of rookies will be starting and playing heavy roles for this team next season, possibly rookie quarterbacks. They're worse than they were a season ago. The Ravens are the only team that has remained a constant, and they have a two-time MVP in Lamar Jackson. There's, obviously multi-Super Bowl winning head coach in Harbaugh. This is a legit Super Bowl contender. The Bengals bring back the same non-playoff roster and want to tell you that they're a Super Bowl contender. Maybe. But the AFC North, how good is the AFC North? It is not the best division in football anymore. It just can't be. The AFC North is no longer the best division in football. I had the AFC North as like legitimate as the best division in football because I did have the Ravens in years past as a Super Bowl contender, and they still are. I did have the Bengals as a Super Bowl contender. I do not think they are anymore. In the Cleveland Browns, if Deshaun Watson played up to expectations, when you look at the fact that he had Nick Chubb and you had Amari Cooper and you had David Njoku, you had that great offensive line, you had that top 5 defense. Yes, I did put them in that Super Bowl or bust category because they went all in as far as the money that they spent. When you have 2 to 3 teams who have a Super Bowl or bust mentality, in Pittsburgh, who never has a losing season from top to bottom, that was the best division in football. I can no longer say that. I can no longer say that the AFC North is the best division in football. I'm very curious to see just how good or bad it is going to be coming up here in 2025. So what happens? So Adam Maxwell says, you don't watch the games, do you? Which games, Adam W. Maxwell, which games do I not watch? I'm kind of curious. What did I say that struck a chord? What games don't I watch? I'll wait. For what games I don't watch. Thank you. Maxwell. So it looks like he's getting pretty defensive about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Metcalf, Woods, Austin, Roman Wilson, Freiermuth, Washington. What's the concern here? That's not good, but is what it is at this point. Who is the best division in football, though? To me, it's no longer the AFC North. I think Shaw weighed in a little bit ago. David Shaw said, no, the NFC North is the best division in football. And, I want to agree with that. But the Chicago Bears, they think they have their quarterback in Caleb Williams. They thought they had their quarterback in Justin Fields. They think a lot. But I have to see it to believe it with the Chicago Bears. I'm still not buying in. I know they went and got Ben Johnson, an offensive-minded offensive coordinator, to be their head coach. If he can't get the most out of Caleb Williams and company, then Caleb Williams just isn't the guy. So I'm not sold on the Chicago Bears. The Green Bay Packers, I'm not sold on Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. And it's not, I really am, I'm buying more into Jordan Love than I am the Packers as a whole. But I'm just not a Green Bay guy. I said it a year ago around this time. I'm just not buying in. Jordan Love is a solid quarterback, but I need to see him take that next step. I don't look at him and put him in the category of a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, hell, even a Jalen Hurts. I need to see more from Jordan Love before I put him in that category. The Minnesota Vikings, yes, and they did a lot defensively in the offseason to kind of make this roster a little bit more well-rounded. I do not think they're going to be as explosive offensively as they were a year ago, but I think a lot of that has to do with really the expectations of what you think you're going to get with J.J. McCarthy. How good is J.J. McCarthy? I thought he was a very overrated pick by the Vikings 2 years ago. Unfortunately, he had the season-ending injury last season, which set up Sam Darnold to start. I thought that was going to be a nightmare for the Minnesota Vikings. Sam Darnold would go on to put up MVP caliber numbers. But as far as the Vikings, I'm not sure. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. The Packers, to me, are not a Super Bowl contender. The Bears are not a Super Bowl contender. And as far as the Detroit Lions are concerned, I think a lot of people would put them in that Super Bowl contender list. But from what we've seen the Lions play at such a high level the last 2 years, but we've also seen that there is a ceiling with their quarterback. Jared Goff is a very, very fine quarterback. Trust me, Cleveland would benefit greatly from having Jared Goff at quarterback. But I think there's a ceiling with Jared Goff. I think they've reached that ceiling with Jared Goff. I think you're going to see a lot of the same Lions this upcoming season, and I think you're going to see them get bounced out of the playoffs in very similar fashion. I just think with I'm not sold that you can win a Super Bowl with him. I know he's taken the team to a Super Bowl. He's won a ton of games with the Lions. But Shaw, I disagree. I cannot say that the NFC North is. I think that the best division in football right now, the best division in the National Football League to me is the AFC West. I think top to bottom, it's the most competitive. Top to bottom, they have four of the most well-rounded teams. And honestly, top to bottom, I think they have four teams with the least amount of question marks. I think you know what you get with each and every one of those teams. I think Denver in year two, I mean, the amount of growth we saw from year one with Sean Payton to year two, with a rookie quarterback especially in Bo Nix, I'm really excited to see the growth of Bo Nix from year one into year two. Such a poised, talented quarterback in that system. I love Denver. I love Denver's defense. I love their run game. I love their weapons. And I love that they're not Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, explosive offense, going to throw the ball all over the place and tear you apart that way. But they're a very methodical offense, and I think they're very well-rounded. They can run the ball, they can pass the ball, and they can play defense. I think right there that Denver is going to be a problem in the AFC. Kansas City, obviously, Super Bowl contender. Kansas City's not going anywhere. I know they got beat up in the Super Bowl last year, but just because you get beat up in the Super Bowl doesn't mean you're no longer a Super Bowl contender. The Chiefs are right there. The Las Vegas Raiders did some interesting moves. I love what they have at tight end. I love what they go out and they get Geno Smith rather than trying to settle, for Gardner Minshew or someone along those lines. They go get Geno. Geno's a heck of a quarterback, obviously. He's not, I don't think he's going to lead him to a Super Bowl by any means. That's a heck of a quarterback. And I love their defense. I love, they took care of Crosby in the offseason. And then, of course, the Los Angeles Chargers. I think that the one reason I also put the AFC West ahead of every division in football is because I think that they also have the four best head coaches. When you have Harbaugh leading the Chargers, obviously, and you have, obviously, Pete Carroll coming out of retirement, although he didn't really retire to coach the Raiders, arguably one of the best, if not the best head coach of all time. And Andy Reid right now just continues to run the dynasty with the Kansas City Chiefs. And then, of course, Sean Payton, a Super Bowl winning head coach there. I mean, every one of these coaches, I guess Harbaugh's been, every one of these coaches won a Super Bowl or been to a Super Bowl. Sean Payton's won a Super Bowl. Andy Reid's won a Super Bowl. Pete Carroll's won a Super Bowl. Harbaugh's led a team to a Super Bowl, won a national championship. I mean, these are all championship caliber head coaches. All these teams have very, very good quarterbacks. All these teams have very, very good defenses. I think top to bottom, the AFC West is the best division in the National Football League. 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Let's jump into this one real quick. Where do we go here? So Javi says that the Rams and 49ers are contenders and Seattle is a fringe contender. I would have said that division, Javi, and I think I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If not, I apologize. I'm not being disrespectful, but I really like that division as well. I'm just still not sure of it. The NFC West, the Cardinals, they have a quarterback. They have good weapons in the pass game. How good is that defense going to be? Still a lot of question marks about the Cardinals. Like, they don't strike fear in anybody, but I could see them being a sleeper team. The Rams, you're right. Super Bowl contender. 49ers, Super Bowl contender. Seattle, to me, is a big-time question mark as well. If Seattle still had Geno Smith and they kept Tyler Lockett and they had Jackson Smith and Jigba with DK Metcalf, and I love Kenneth Walker, Seattle's been one of my favorite sleeper teams the last couple of years because I felt like they had all the ingredients to be a big-time contender. But they moved on from Lockett. They moved on from DK Metcalf. You no longer have Geno Smith. I know you go to Sam Darnold. I don't like this Seattle makeup right now. I have a lot of question marks about just how good they could be. I don't think I disagree that that's the best division in football, but I will say that that's probably the second best. I would still take the West over the North. I think the West has more Super Bowl contenders than the NFC North. I would put the AFC West first. I would put the NFC West second. I would put, I would put the NFC East third, NFC North fourth. I mean, AFC North, I guess I could put fifth. And we'll have to take a look at this. I'll have to make a ranking of these. But as of right now, I still think the AFC West is the best division in football. Let's open up the phone lines, 937-518-1410. If you want to give the show a call, we'll keep the phone lines open and you can weigh in on this. The AFC North, to me, has been the best division in football for years. But the Browns, so many question marks. They're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're kind of rebuilding. They're kind of not. They have a very older, veteran-led group on defense, but going to be one of the youngest groups on offense if Joe Flacco's not the quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers don't know who the hell they are. They just moved on from George Pickens today. Bengals, Super Bowl contender, but it's the same roster that's missed the playoffs the last 2 years, so I can't put them in that category either. The Ravens obviously are for real. The AFC North is no longer the best division in football. I think it's the AFC West. 4 of the best head coaches out there. 4 really, really good quarterbacks. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, fantastic. Bo Nix is great. The fact that Geno Smith is the worst quarterback in that division, and Geno Smith is a very, very good quarterback, that's how I know that division's the best in football. Geno Smith is the 4th best quarterback in that division. That's how I know that's the best division in football. But let's debate. 937-518-1410. The hotline is officially open to you. We'll take your calls when we come back. More of the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers when we return. right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Happy Wednesday, everybody. All right, the show presented by Frickers, and every month we take the show on the road, and we're going to be hitting up a different Frickers every single month throughout the remainder of the year. We've already visited the Centerville Frickers. We were just at the Woodman location last April, and coming up on the 16th, Kev Nash and I, we're going to be taking the show live on the road. We'll be in Huber Heights on May 16th. So mark that down again. If you want to come on out, we're going to be, we got Buckeye Country Superfest tickets. We're going to be giving away. Jelly Roll and Kane Brown going to be at the shoe coming up this summer. We'll have plenty of Reds tickets we'll be giving away. We have quite a few Ellie De La Cruz bobbleheads in stock as well that we'll be giving out at these remotes. A lot of cool prizes. And then, of course, it's always fun seeing you guys out there. We got some Frickers bucks we'll be giving away on a first come, first serve basis to those who show up and hang out with us. So come on out on May 16th, a live edition of the Justin Kinner Show on the road at the Frickers in Huber Heights. Kev's only happy because that's just a couple-minute drive from his house, so he won't have to come all the way in that day. So there you go. Again, the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers, live at Frickers, coming up on the 16th over in Huber Heights. Talking about the best division in football, it's kind of changed a little bit. The landscape slightly changing. I no longer think it's the AFC North. I don't even find the AFC North to be that interesting anymore. Like I find the Steelers to be boring. I think Cleveland semi-interesting just because of the Shedeur Sanders thing, but they're going to be a hard watch if the offense is as bad as last year, averaging 14 points per game. Cincinnati's exciting to watch. I mean, to have all that talent and still find a way to miss the playoffs. I mean, that's some special stuff right there. But they found a way to do it. I mean, I've never seen a team miss the playoffs with a superstar quarterback in my life before. Joe Burrow was healthy all season. I've never seen a team like a healthy Peyton Manning in his prime doesn't miss the playoffs. A healthy Tom Brady in his prime doesn't miss the playoffs. A healthy Josh Allen. Josh Allen had no weapons last year outside of a run game. He had a hell of a run game, but no one to really throw the ball to. He goes and wins an MVP. Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. He has Mike Gesicki. Misses the playoffs for the second straight season. I've never seen that before. That's very, very impressive to do. So they're interesting. And then the Ravens have Lamar Jackson, easily one of the most exciting players out there. But earlier, so by the way, Javi, so it's not Javi. You said your name is JV. Well, okay, Javi, JV, I'm very far off. But to defend myself, you literally spell out, like your last name is like it's J-A, what is it? J-A-Y. J-A-V or J-A-V-Y. So I thought it was Javi, but like it's JV. I mean, JD Vance doesn't spell his name G or J-A-Y and then D-E-E. It's just JD. So just JV. There you go. You threw me out. Don't blame me. I'm not blaming you, but the confusion, you could see where it's coming from there. But no, we welcome you guys back again. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Continuing on with this, but I am interested in people's thoughts on this as far as, it's an interesting debate as far as the best division in football, because I think it's the AFC West. When you look at how strong the quarterback candidate list is, and there you have Justin Herbert, you have Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert right off the bat. Bo Nix, a rookie quarterback, leads his team to the playoffs in the postseason last year. And then Geno Smith, who puts up big numbers. I mean, he's one of the best. I don't want to say one of the best, but he's one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a top 10 fringe top 10. Geno Smith is one of the strangest quarterbacks in the NFL. I have no clue how to decipher who he is. He throws for a ton of yards. He throws for a ton of touchdowns. His teams always win. He's always in the postseason. I know he wasn't there last year, but the bottom line is he's a top quarterback. He's a very, very good quarterback. And if that's the worst quarterback in your division, you're doing pretty damn good. Obviously, the NFC East, I'm very curious. Like Dallas, I like that defense. I thought they had a very good draft. You have Dak Prescott throwing to CeeDee Lamb, but you just go and get a George Pickens. If George Pickens mentally can buy in and not be a distraction and not self-destruct, I mean, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, that's a nice little 1-2 punch. It's not Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, but CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase are pretty damn close to one another. I'll still take T over Pickens, but that combo right there, if George Pickens buys in, that's a pretty dangerous one. I think with the weapons they have on defense and Pickens buys in, Dallas is pretty damn good, but they're not better than Philadelphia. Philly's obviously the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, and they improved their roster somehow. And then the Washington Commanders, who were in the NFC Championship game last year with a rookie quarterback, and they only got better this past offseason. The Giants are the weak link right there. I like but at the end of the day, for me right now, the East is good. The NFC East is good, but I wouldn't take it over the West. The NFC West has a lot of question marks as well. It is what it is. Let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals quick. I want to talk about the roster makeup. And we'll take this, obviously, into the next hour of the show as well. But let's set the stage with this. I don't understand what the Cincinnati Bengals are doing. Like, the Cincinnati Bengals are in a weird spot because technically, yes, they have given out major extensions to Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. $70 million combined a season between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and then the $55+ million a year for Joe Burrow. I mean, that's $120 million a season being given to three players all on the same side of the ball without any of that with the remaining cap space. So was the cap last year, like 230 or 240, whatever it is. So now you have just about $120 million remaining to make up the rest of your roster. But the good thing for the Bengals is that Joe Burrow's contract has yet to truly hit as far as impacting the salary cap, the dead cap. Same thing with Jamar Chase, who just gets the extension. That's not going to really hurt them until another year or two. Same thing with T. Higgins. Trey Hendrickson isn't a big contract. Like, you don't have any big contracts on this roster. You spent some okay money on that offensive line, but there's really no contracts that are debilitating this roster right now. This cap space is pretty solid. They came into the offseason or this offseason with what $50-60 million to spend. And they just they rewrote the contract for Moss to free up a couple million. They just reworked the contract for Geno Stone, who they got from the Ravens, or he was a free agent, but he was a former Raven. He was coming from the Ravens technically. They reworked his contract and freed up $1.5 million. So they're sitting at about $26 million. There was a cryptic tweet that just came out a little bit ago from Jermaine Pratt, who I have no clue why he's still on this roster. What are they doing? They could have traded him. I mean, they had 6 draft picks this year for all the holes that they have on this roster. To head into the draft with only 6 draft picks with Jermaine Pratt, who you're going to trade and get a draft pick in return for. Why would you not have traded him before the draft to get an additional draft pick for this past draft, which was a very good depth draft? The Bengals the front office is idiotic. They are. You guys have one of the dumbest front offices in the history of football. I'm being dead serious. I don't care. You can call me a hater all you want. I'm getting pissed off the more I think about it because this team has an opportunity. As a Browns fan, I could sit back and look at the Bengals and say, like, they have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. You know how weird it is to look at that roster and actually utter what I'm about to say? That roster is a sleeping giant. That roster's already been to a Super Bowl. That roster already has a quarterback putting up MVP caliber numbers, a wide receiver winning a triple crown, and T. Higgins, who's the number 1 wide receiver, is the number 2 wide receiver in Cincinnati. I mean, what are we doing? This roster has never been able to fully reach its potential because the freaking front office will not invest into it. You have $26.5 million left right now, and you did absolutely nothing to improve this roster in free agency. The draft kind of sucked, to be honest with you. It wasn't very impressive. I mean, we just had, who was it? Oh, Ben Mock from The Athletic. Ben Mock from The Athletic covers the NFL, joined us last Friday, and he gave the Bengals a D- on their draft. He said that they every pick was a gamble. Every pick they reached on, like, they didn't really get any great value on any of their picks. So I get angry because I'm not a Bengals fan, but, like, I don't know why I'm angry. You guys should be angry, but I guess I'm angry because when I point this stuff out, you guys act like it's no big deal. It is. This front office has a sleeping giant of a roster with those 3 right there. And right now, those contracts have not impacted this roster. If you invested into this roster, you would be better than the Philadelphia Eagles because Joe Burrow is better than Jalen Hurts. Jamar Chase is better than A.J. Brown. T. Higgins is better than Devontae Smith. Sure, you may not have anybody that's better than Saquon Barkley, but that's also on the Cincinnati Bengals because they also could be aggressive to go out to help improve the run game. They also could be aggressive to go out and improve this Bengals defense to match the intensity and the urgency of the Philadelphia Eagles. You have Trey Hendrickson, the NFL sack leader. Imagine if you went out and actually spent money to try to provide more pass rushers with Trey Hendrickson while you could freaking afford it. You could afford it right now. You're not going to be able to afford it in a couple years. You draft all these rookies. You draft a bunch of starters. You draft a bunch of rookies that you're going to throw out to be starters this upcoming season. They're making moves as if they have no money. Teams who have no money are forced to start a bunch of rookies on the defensive side of the ball. Teams with a elite quarterback and elite wide receivers that the contracts haven't impacted the salary cap yet, those teams go out and spend and try to do everything that they can to win. The Bengals aren't doing anything to win. I mean, they're freeing up this money. What are they doing with it? They freed up money last year. A couple years ago, they freed up the money with Joe Mixon. They didn't do anything with it. What are you freeing up money? Tom Brenneman, in the time I worked with him over at Chatterbox, he was always super critical of the Bengals, of all the money that they're always just sitting on. They have all this money that they're able to spend, and they just choose not to. Because then what's going to happen in a few years when the salary cap truly is hit by the contracts of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and then they can't spend money? And then the rookies that they're all drafting now actually don't pan out, and then they have no money to go plug holes, and then they have to start this process all over again of reaching in the draft and trying to find starters that way. It's absolutely insane and ridiculous. So then I was like, well, maybe, they don't have a lot of, big available free agents out there that can help this team. NFL.com just put out a list of available free agents and listed a bunch of teams that they would make that some of these free agents would make a huge impact on. Stephon Gilmore is being linked to the Cincinnati Bengals by NFL.com. Now, being linked to the Bengals, not as in, they're being linked to the Bengals because they're hearing word of conversations being held behind the scenes of them trying to work out, whatever. No, it's that the Bengals have the money to spend. You have a chance to get one of the better defensive players and defensive backs in the league so that you're not relying on all rookies to come in to help you out. You're not relying on a former safety turned cornerback to all of a sudden just magically figure it out. I mean, what are we doing? Justin Simmons is also available. Well, we've spent a lot of money on the quarterback, wide receivers. We need to draft one and develop one. Well, the Philadelphia Eagles, who drafted and developed a lot and spent a lot of money on their roster, there's rumors right now that the Eagles are working behind the scenes to restructure some contracts to go get Justin Simmons. The defending Super Bowl champions are doing everything they can to go get one of the best safeties in football, but the team that has all this money to spend that honestly let one of the best safeties in football just walk out for nothing years ago, they're afraid to go get him. And then I made this point on Off the Bench earlier today. I said, if I know they need a guard, right? They need help at pass, with some pass rushing. The free agents may not help that, but okay, then what are your strengths right now? Why don't you just be obnoxious and lean into it even more? Who's your third wide receiver on this roster? Jermaine Burton, Mr. Attitude Problem. All right, Jermaine Burton couldn't figure it out playing for Nick Saban. He couldn't figure it out playing for Kirby Smart. Nick Saban's retired, but those were the two best head coaches in college football for quite some time, and he couldn't play for them. And you guys drafted him thinking that he was going to play for Zach Taylor. I mean, the words of Nick Saban couldn't get him to snap out of his attitude problems. Kirby Smart couldn't get him to snap out of his attitude problem, but Mr. Good Boy Zach Taylor's gonna, hey Jermaine, can you play hard, please? Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely. Why didn't you just ask the first time? No one's listening to Zach Taylor. What are we doing? Go get Keenan Allen. Right? I don't expect him to actually do any of this stuff, but these are what aggressive teams do. And when you have this, they have 20, it's roughly about 26 million. And if they do move on from Jermaine Pratt, that's going to be another 5 or 8 million that's going to free up. So they're going to be sitting with over 30 million. What did you do this offseason? You reached on pretty much every draft pick. You're going to start a lot of rookies on a defense that was one of the worst in the NFL last year. If you're relying on a handful of rookies to come in to save the day, I have no clue how you continue to function as an organization. I'm actually kind of disappointed that they got that deal done with the city to keep the team in Cincinnati. I was kind of hoping that the team would have left Cincinnati, not because I'm a hater, but because I would love to see what an owner with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, I would love to see what an owner that actually gives a damn would be able to do. But this is impressive stuff. There's a lot of owners that do really impressive stuff on the positive side. What the Bengals organization has been able to do to screw up this Joe Burrow era is pretty fascinating to me. The Bengals, acting with absolutely zero urgency right now when you have Julian Blackmon that's out there. Ron's in the chat. I know, Ron, you're a big fan of the Buccaneers. He's being linked to the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have spent a ton of money as well. They're being linked to Julian Blackman. Go get him. I know you just let Mike Hilton go because you wanted to get younger. Well, I kind of agree with that. You could still get younger while keeping veteran experienced players on the roster. I just don't get it. And you want to know, there's a free agent available that I actually think would help the Cincinnati Bengals a ton. I loved him in Cleveland. I was bummed to see him go. He complemented Myles Garrett perfectly on that defensive line. And then when Hutchinson got hurt with the Lions last year, they pulled the trigger and traded for him. I love Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith is never going to lead the league in sacks. He's not going to be a major Pro Bowler at this point. But can you imagine? Zadarius Smith was a perfect player to play alongside Myles Garrett. I think he would be fantastic on that Bengals defensive line, and he's not going to cost you a ton, and you wouldn't have to give him a long-term contract. You have all this money to spend. Freaking take care of obviously Hendrickson, and then go get a Zadarius Smith and put a formidable pass rush on that defensive line. And then maybe the secondary that I think is just straight garbage that you guys think is some promise there. Well, then if you truly think that there's some promise with that secondary, why don't you give them the best opportunity to succeed by being aggressive and going to add some pass rushers on that defensive line? I know that's what you guys did when you drafted Shamar Stewart, the guy that looks like Tarzan but plays like Jane. I don't know why I'm getting so angry for a team that I'm not a fan of. I can't understand it. And then the run game. The run game stinks. Oh, well, they don't need the run game. They have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Give me a break. You need the run game. You need to be a balanced offense. That's idiotic video game mentality that you don't need running backs because you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Mike Gesicki and Joe Burrow. That's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. J.K. Dobbins is available. Can you imagine J.K. Dobbins with Joe Burrow? Well, J.K. Dobbins can't stay healthy. I get that. But at this point of the offseason, beggars can't be choosers. I would love, if I'm a Bengals fan, I would be pushing for J.K. Dobbins to be picked up by the Bengals. Why not? Yeah, Rotten says Jadeveon Clowney. Yes, a lot of the names that are left, none of these are franchise players, but they're great depth pieces. The Bengals just don't get it. They're a stupid franchise. They are. They're just not worthy. Oh, it's so frustrating. It's beyond frustrating. People rip the Browns ownership because of the Deshaun Watson deal. You know what? I get that, and I have to take that on the chin all the time. But you know what? I will take the Haslams over the Browns any day because I've never once, as a fan of the Cleveland Browns, doubted that the Haslams want to win. I truly doubt that Mike Brown gives a damn about winning in Cincinnati. The Haslams want to win. The Deshaun Watson thing blew up in their face, but guess what? That was one of the biggest gambles in the history of the NFL. It blew up in their face, but you know what? They went all in. After they went and got Deshaun Watson and gave him the biggest contract in NFL history at the time and gave him fully guaranteed money, all they did was continue to give out extensions, of course, to Denzel Ward to make him the highest paid corner in football. We're on the second extension already with Myles Garrett. They spent a ton of money on the defense and on the offense. You could say what you want about the Browns, make fun of them all you want, but I'm always going to feel like the Browns are going to have a chance at some point because they have an ownership that is willing to truly invest into the roster. Cincinnati does not have that. You're fortunate that they're very fortunate. The Cincinnati Bengals win 2 games, and it just happens to be the season leading in to the draft that Joe Burrow's right there. The Bengals didn't do anything great to get Joe Burrow. You just sucked. The Browns sucked this past season, and what'd they get? Dylan freaking Gabriel. Luck. You had not Andrew Luck. You just had pure luck that the one year that you sucked as bad as you did, it happened to be heading into a draft that had Joe Burrow. And let's be clear, you didn't plan to be bad that year. There was no plan. The Bengals did not plan. Their win total that year was 8.5. They were not supposed to be that bad. They had Andy Dalton. You guys were supposed to be a fringe playoff team. You were still with Marvin Lewis. It was still just, they were not supposed to be that bad. But it is what it is. At this point. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But like I said, the Bengals didn't do anything special to bring excitement to the city. You just happened to suck at the right time. The Browns are an example of, they were bad too, just like the Bengals were in 2019, except their draft had Joe Burrow in it, and the Browns draft well, had Dylan Gabriel. So that's where I'm at with that. But the Bengals, you actually have money to spend. You can go out and spend money. You can get Asante Samuel Jr. is available. He's 25 years old. I could see why you don't want to go get like spend money on some older players like Mike Hilton. I get why you wanted to move. Asante Samuel's 25 years old. And then you want to talk about, on the defensive line is Zadarius Smith. I mean, I get that he's a little bit older as well, but at the same time, I mean, he's 32. 32's, I mean, I'm 35. I don't think I'm old, and you guys are saying Zadarius Smith is old at 32, but you're not marrying Zadarius Smith long term. It sounds like you're not going to have Hendrickson. It sounds like you're not going to have Trey Hendrickson after next season anyways, because it doesn't look like you're going to get a long-term extension done. If you're only going to have him for one more year, then take advantage of having one of the best, if not the best pass rusher in football right now, as far as getting to the quarterback, and Trey Hendrickson. Go pair him with Zadarius Smith. Oh no, we got Shamar Stewart. Let Shamar Stewart rotate in and out and get better. Chad Kinster says, sounds like a little bit of jealousy there, Kinner. Yes, I am jealous. I'm jealous that at the time that my team really stinks, I have Dylan Gabriel in the draft, and when your team stinks, you got Joe Burrow in the draft. Yes, I am jealous. I am jealous. And next year, and watch. And by the way, the Browns will do the most Browns thing ever. The Browns are going to win 8 games this year. They're going to win 8 or 9 games, and they're going to be picking at number 16 or 17. And they're not going to have a chance to get one of the top quarterbacks because Dylan Gabriel is going to show a little promise. Shedeur is going to show some flashes here and there. But they're not going to make you feel secure as if you have a quarterback long term. So then there's going to be so many question marks. All right, well, who do we roll with in year 2? Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders? Do we try to package up some of the draft picks we have and go get an Arch Manning? What do we do? I mean, it's an absolute mess. Nothing makes sense for the Cleveland Browns, and it is. And then the Cincinnati, and they have an owner who will spend a ton of money to dig themselves out of stuff. Your team has the stuff that the Browns would kill for. I'm telling you right now, the Bengals would be a dynasty if the Haslams owned them, and you could mock that all you want. If the Haslams had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, they would be a dynasty because there would be no, we're going to have a ton of rookies starting on defense. No, they would go spend money. They would add the Zadarius Smiths of the world. They would add the Stephon Gilmores of the world, the Asante Samuels of the world. They would make sure that you don't have a bunch of no-name running backs because, people with a brain actually know in football, it's not, we have wide receivers, so we don't need running backs. No, you look at the freaking Philadelphia Eagles who just won a Super Bowl, by the way, so maybe if there's a blueprint that you want to follow, how about you follow the team that just won a damn championship this past year? They have, obviously, Devontae Smith. They obviously have A.J. Brown, 2 of the top wide receivers in the National Football League. They have, a quarterback that's led that team to a Super Bowl twice now, just won the Super Bowl, won Super Bowl MVP. They have a very, very good team as well. And they decided to go and get Saquon Barkley because no one in that organization who actually knows what they're doing had the idiotic thought of, well, we don't need Saquon Barkley because we have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. No, people with brains actually exist within the Eagles organization, and that's why they just won a Super Bowl, and that's why the Cincinnati Bengals are hoping that a guy that looks like Myles Garrett might actually play like Myles Garrett at some point. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. No idea why I just let that tick me off, but it's insane. Yeah, jealousy, if you want to call it that, fine. But the amount of people that take shots at the Haslams, if the Haslams owned the Cincinnati Bengals, your team would be a dynasty because the owners would invest. They would see that, oh my God, because that's what the Haslams did. They go and get Deshaun Watson. They didn't just spend the money on the quarterback and say, see, here you guys, you happy? No, they went and spent the money on Deshaun, and then they made sure to give him every weapon that you could possibly imagine. They made sure to invest into the offensive line. They made sure to invest into the run game. They made sure to invest into the defense and the special teams. Did it work? No. But at least as a fan, I'm not questioning whether the Haslams gave a damn about winning. I really question whether the results on the field truly matter to the Cincinnati Bengals staff. That's why your team lost a Super Bowl, and they threw a parade for it. Because by golly, we tried hard. Says all you need to know about that organization. Call me a hater all you want. But everything I said, I don't know why I'm the bad guy for saying this. You as Bengals fans should be angry too. With Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and $26 million right now and possibly into the 30s once they finally figure out what they're going to do with Jermaine Pratt, you should be as angry as I am. We'll be right back.
Hello, it's John Kozik, founder and president of TurboTrack Realty. Do you want to sell your property however you need them?
hot takes?
No, I'm not going to apologize to Ryan Day. Everything we said about Ryan Day up until the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, and we welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Hour number 2. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. So last part of the show, of course, to close out the first hour, we discussed the Cincinnati Bengals. Are they done adding to the roster? And it's amazing how many people I talk to that say, yeah, they probably are done adding to the roster, and it just doesn't make sense. I won't lose my cool this time, but it's like they've sitting right now. So they reworked Zach Moss's contract last week and freed up a couple million. And they just reworked Geno Stone's contract to free up about $1.5 million. Okay. They're still sitting on, and I don't understand Jermaine Pratt still being on this roster. As I said earlier, they could have traded him for a draft pick. They only had 6 draft picks this past week. This past draft, I think every pick would have mattered for this group who needs to fill and plug a lot of holes on this roster. So I don't know what they're doing there, but right now sitting at about $26.5 million to still spend. Once they get that Jermaine Pratt thing situated, I mean, I have a hard time believing that they're going to keep him, right? Maybe they are. I don't know, but if they move on from him, that's going to free up another 5 to 8, I think, in that range. So you'd be sitting anywhere between that 30, 35 mil range. So you're freeing up this money, but the question I have is why? Now, some people are saying, okay, it's just going to be used to finally get that extension done with Trey Hendrickson. Why are you giving him a long-term extension? I've talked to Jay Morrison with SI, with Sports Illustrated, and he's expressed on the show in the past that what he believes is going to happen is that they're going to try to find a way to be able to get the money together to give him, put him at about that 30 mil range. He's sitting at about that 16 mil right now, looking to get him at about that 30 mil range for this upcoming season. So to give him that extension and 30 mil fully guaranteed just for this upcoming year and then part ways after this. So I don't think it's going to be an extension. I think it's going to be just a quick bump in pay so that he's fully locked in and ready to go for this upcoming season. He's going to be paid around market value for the upcoming season. For his final year with the Bengals, he's going to go and ball out and then get paid by some other team next season. Okay, that's great. But if you do that, again, you're bringing Trey Hendrickson back, and you did nothing this offseason. You have all this money to spend to improve this roster, and you're choosing not to. Sante Samuel Jr. is available. Stephon Gilmore's available. Zadarius Smith is available. J.K. Dobbins is available. Justin Simmons is available. Julian Blackmon is available. I mean, there are so many top-end free agents that are still available that can make an impact. Now you're saying, well, they don't need a J.K. Dobbins. Well, again, you may think that. I disagree with you. J.K. Dobbins, when healthy, is actually a very, very good running back, and I think that their run game needs all the help that they can get. Oh, but I like their running back room. Look, the team last year that was one of the worst run teams in football. Give me a break, okay? Stop with that lame excuse. Well, they didn't run. Their numbers were bad because they didn't run the football out. They didn't have to. I don't really care. They have. I mean, it's an excuse every year. They are always at the bottom when it comes to the run game. Joe Mixon leaves and goes and balls out with the Houston Texans. Couldn't find a way to win with him. That's on the Cincinnati Bengals. So the bottom line is they have the money to spend. They're not always going to have a lot of money to spend moving forward. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, their contracts eventually are going to really handicap this roster on what they're able to do from a financial standpoint, which means they do have to hit in the draft. But you could still draft and spend money right now. The Eagles just had a very impressive draft and also are spending a lot of money. They're being linked to Justin Simmons right now, who's one of the top safeties in football for the Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions, one of the most hard-hitting defenses in the NFL. To get a top-end safety like that in May, when other teams, when they have less money to spend than the Bengals, but they're being aggressive to find a way to go get it done because they don't just care that they won. They want to keep winning, and they want to keep this roster young and experienced at the same time and fresh. And I just don't feel like the Bengals care. I said a little bit ago that if the people rip the Browns and you rip the Haslams, but if Jimmy Haslam, if the Haslams owned the Cincinnati Bengals and they owned a team that had Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, they would be a dynasty. because Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins would have one of the best. They would have super talented running backs. They would have a loaded offensive line. They would rework and restructure contracts and make sure that they have some of the best defensive players in the league on the roster, just like Cleveland does. Cincinnati, obviously better than Cleveland because they have the most important positions all figured out. They have 2 elite wide receivers and a quarterback that instantly puts you well ahead, and a sack leader, obviously, and Trey Hendrickson, who I would never take over Myles Garrett to begin with. But I mean, they have some very important pieces to the puzzle already mastered. But when you may have some of the most important pieces to the puzzle done, but when you don't effort to put the full puzzle together, what the hell's the point? I don't know how you put a puzzle together. I'm not 80. I don't know how, I haven't ever done a puzzle, but I watch, some people do a puzzle time to time. I see that, they'll get the whole perimeter of the puzzle all done together. And then that, makes it easy. They start building from the outside in. They put the whole puzzle together. Well, Mike Brown, they're like, well, hey, we're going to get the whole perimeter of the puzzle done. And, well, that looks nice. And they never complete the puzzle. That's what's happening right now in Cincinnati. They have the most important part of the puzzle done, but they refuse to put the whole puzzle together. It's a joke. You could say, well, the Bengals can't be the biggest joke in football. I mean, they've been to a Super Bowl recently. They win. Yes, you actually do become the biggest joke in the NFL because you are fortunate to have a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and the fact that you're not doing anything with it. What do you mean? They gave Jamar Chase and T. Higgins the extension. Your quarterback had to go on a crybaby temper tantrum tour at the Super Bowl to put the pressure on the front office to do it. If Joe Burrow truly felt like his organization was going to do the right thing, he never would have gone and done those interviews. Joe Burrow doesn't do interviews. Now, he's done an interview or two here and there. He does about 1 or maybe 2 an off season, but he's not a very out there type of guy. He doesn't go out and about and do media tours. Like, he's not that guy. He was that guy at the Super Bowl. He was going on First Take. He was going on every FS1 show. He was going on every show you could imagine to put the pressure on that front office to get it done. Because he had no faith in that. I think that's a bad look. Oh, and then Bengals fans think it's a win. They got it done. You got it done, but the fact that they didn't want to get it done is just weird. Why is Joe Burrow having to in a roster that has spent hardly any money? Why is Joe Burrow having to pressure you to pay Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? Why is he having to pressure you into taking care of Trey Hendrickson? Why? Because I could see why there's some teams that I'm like, okay, I can understand why you're not going all in on free agency. You don't really know what you have at quarterback. You don't really know if you're going to be that good. So what's the point of spending all this money when you know you're kind of in limbo heading into the season? I can understand that. But when you have a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins on contracts that right now don't impact the cap, I would be taking advantage of that and having as much fun as possible, going to get every big name that I can afford with the money that I have available to spend. I'm not saying to go buy players that you can't afford. You have $26.5 million right now, probably over 30 by the time you figure out what you're doing with Jermaine Pratt. And you have the Zadarius Smiths and the Julian Blackmans and the Justin Simmons of the world out there, Zadarius Smith. I mean, you have these impact players that can be a big time addition to make this a hard hitting defense, and they're just choosing not to do it. I'm not hating. You're probably like, oh, here Kinner goes again. Another, I hate the Bengals segment. I'm not hating. I should be, everything I'm saying should be repeating what you believe. And the sad thing is a lot of Bengals fans disagree with me. And that's the weird thing. That's the weird thing. Chad Kinser says, I've begged for a new owner for years. I don't hide from that. I thought Kelly Blackburn would have been different, but she married into the family. So I should have known Old Man Brown still writes the checks. I always hear that people thought Katie Blackburn was going to be different, but have you seen her, the way she handles a lot of these? It's a very smug, arrogant, like, you're lucky we're paying you type of thing. Like, you watch those clips that were making the rounds from the HBO Hard Knocks, Chad. Like, I hear that a lot, that people think that it was going to be different with her. After watching how she handles a lot of this stuff, I don't know why anyone actually thought that it was going to be different with her. Hell, everyone blames the Brown family. It could be her that's the problem at the end of the day when it's all said and done. Who knows? But, Ron Howard says, yeah, Aaron Jones is available. Yeah, there's a lot of talented players available. A ton. And they could actually go out and do it. They're just choosing not to. And I just don't get it. I don't understand that. And like I said, if the Haslams owned the Bengals would be a dynasty. Simple as that. Oh, yeah, the Haslams are doing a great job in Cleveland. Yeah. The Haslams realized that for them to be successful, you have to get the quarterback. That's why they did everything they could to go get Deshaun Watson, when he was with Houston, was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I've said that forever. I mean, that's not even a hot take. It's legitimate. He was an MVP candidate. Like that. That's why the Haslams decided to go all in to go get Deshaun Watson, because once you get the quarterback right, everything else just falls into place, and they spend a ton of money around Deshaun. Like, that's the thing. If you're a free agent if you're a quarterback, people say you don't want to go to Cleveland. If I'm a quarterback, I know this sounds wild. I would want to go to Cleveland. I want to go to if you were a quarterback and you had to go to Cincinnati, who's proven to have success in recent years, or the Cleveland Browns, who are constantly a joke, who would you pick? A lot of you are going to say, oh, Cincinnati, they've proven that they can win there, yada, yada. I would pick Cleveland with the Haslams as the owners, because when Cleveland finally does get the quarterback right, they have an owner that's going to give them everything that they want and need. You mean to tell me if they had Joe Burrow, that aggressive owner that is willing to spend whatever it takes to get a competitive roster out there, you mean to tell me that the Bengals wouldn't be better off with the Haslams? They would. The Browns, when they get the quarterback right, if Dylan Gabriel actually is the guy, if Shador is the guy, look out. And if they're not, in the Browns, I saw the Vegas win totals have them like sitting at about like 5.5. Some mock drafts for next year come out, having the Browns based on win totals, picking number 1 overall next year. And the Browns get Arch Manning, and Arch Manning, who I'm not completely sold on, by the way. Everyone seems to be in love with this kid. If Arch Manning truly is this great QB prospect, like a Joe Burrow and Andrew Luck and guys like that, then Cleveland's in good shape, because they're going to have an owner that's going to truly invest into it. Arch Manning, if he's a Cleveland Brown 3 years from now, is not going to have to go do a crybaby media tour begging ownership to spend money to improve the roster. Just won't. All right. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. The other team in Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Reds. 4-game losing streak, 4 games back of the Cubs in the division, 3 games back of the wild card. Is the season over? Are they done? Mathematically not done. I get that, but we're all vibes, people. What do the vibes say? What are the vibes telling you about this Reds team? Is the season over for the Cincinnati Reds? We'll discuss when we come back. I said yesterday, last night was a must-win game for the Reds, and I thought they were going to pull it off, and they lost in extras. Painful. The lineup's out for tonight with Hunter Green on the mound. We'll take a look at the lineup for the Reds when we come back. The Reds called up one of their hot hitters from the minors today to hopefully help spark a little bit of life into this Reds lineup. We'll talk about who that is when we come back. More of the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, when we return.
Hi, Drew and Jonathan Scott here, reminding you that a lot of life's firsts are better with help from a
All right, and we welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Want to give a shout out to our friends over at Titan Graphics. Titan Graphics is the Miami Valley's choice for custom screen printing, embroidery, laser engraving, and promotional products. Place your order today at Titan Graphics. Again, want to shout out Titan Graphics. They hook us up with all of our t-shirts and our giveaways, our signage for our live shows. We really appreciate our partnership with them. The koozies that we're going to be giving away at live shows moving forward. Anything we need, all of our promotional items here at the station, they take care of, and they do it in a timely fashion. I shared the story yesterday. My wedding years ago, my wife gave me one job because I said I was going to help. I was just getting in the way. She said, I tell you what, your only responsibility is make sure we get the koozies for the wedding. I said, okay, that's fine. I forgot about it. A couple days, we're about a week out. And she said, hey, do you have the koozies? I said, oh yeah, absolutely. She walks out of the room. I'm in panic mode. I did not get the koozies. I called over to Titan Graphics. I was panicking. One of their sales reps, I shared with them the situation and what happened. They had me those koozies in 3 days. Like, they understood, they took care of it. And I really appreciated them for doing that. So like, that's just the type of work that they do. Very helpful to make sure you get exactly what you want. So if you're a coach looking for obviously t-shirts, jerseys, or whatever, if you're looking for promotional items, you're a business manager, HR, trying to get stuff to fill up for the office, whatever it is, Titan Graphics, go and check them out. Appreciate the work that they do. All right. I don't know if you guys saw this. Malachi Smith, former Dayton Flyer. I don't get why athletes do this, and it's kind of driving me nuts. Malachi Smith put out like a farewell video yesterday on Twitter. And it was cringe to me. I'm not going to lie. Because if Malachi Smith graduated and was in his college career was done and he's doing an emotional farewell, love it. Love it. But Malachi Smith, whose brother played his entire career here at Dayton, Malachi Smith chose to leave, and he chose to go to UConn. Basically said, hey, I want to go play for a real team, I guess. I'm not really sure why he's leaving Dayton. It doesn't make any sense. But the bottom line is he's basically given up. He quit on the team. I'm sorry, but that's exactly what he quit on your team. He quit on the Dayton Flyers, and then he puts out this emotional, you guys stuck with me through my injuries. I just really appreciate you. I'm always going to be a Flyer. No, you're not. UD tweeted out too, you're always a Flyer. No, he dumped you. I promise you this much. I'm very, my wife, I love her to pieces, and I hope she never leaves me. But if she ever does, and she says farewell, I'm not going to say you'll always be a Kinner. No, I mean, like, forget you. Change your last name, lady. I love my wife. I would never say that. You know what I mean, though. But do you see what I mean? You see how ridiculous that sounds? Dayton looks pathetic on social media. Oh, Mally, you're always going to be a Flyer. He broke up with you. He found a hotter chick. He found someone with bigger. Well, you know what? We don't need to go there. He found a way better looking chick to go with. He dumped you. You don't get to do the emotional goodbye when you chose to leave. Like that's ridiculous. These athletes, I tell you, you're so entitled that you think you're allowed to just quit on your team and still think that there's an emotional connection, that you're quitting on them. Anthony Grant's bringing in all this young new talent next season. How important it would be to have a experienced veteran point guard that has been with the program his entire career to lead the way. But no, you want to go play for UConn. You're quitting on your team. You don't get to put out an emotional little video like that. It's stupid. It really is. Like, it's cringe. I watched that video and I rolled my eyes, and it's cringe. The comments, UD fans, ugh. Oh, Mally, thanks for everything you did for the program. It all gets null and void when you quit. Sorry, but I'm not a fan of that. You want to make, where's that energy for Wright State? Hey, I'm with you. Everyone's like, it's going to be pretty cool to see Brandon Knoll go to Ohio State. I love Brandon. Brandon's one of the nicest people I've ever met. But it's a little different too. Like, Brandon Knoll leaving a Wright State Horizon League school to go to Ohio State. It's kind of, I understand that a little bit, but He doesn't get to do the emotional once a Raider, always a Raider thing. Now you quit on the team. Alex Hubricks quit on Wright State. I like the guys, but that's what happened. That's what happened. Malachi Smith does not get to do a little emotional farewell video. And I'm judging every single one of you. Oh, Mally, thank you for everything. Did you get to the part where you thanked him for quitting on the team? Anyways, is what it is. Roger Roger says, yeah, a chick with bigger NIL funds. Yes. He left for the chick with much larger NIL funds. Yes. They're very well played, Roger. Thank you for the save on that one. Good job. Good job, Roger. I appreciate that. But Roger says if the Reds are swept, the season is over. Oh, yeah, Roger, thank you. This is a sports show. My bad. Let's get back on track here. Is the Reds season over? The Reds lost last night for the fourth straight time, 2-1, losing in extras. Again, just a bad decision, a fielding decision by Matt McClain late. A slight hesitation led to just a slight delay in his throw to home plate, and it was a bang-bang play at home. Obviously, he was safe. But if McClain gets rid of that ball just a second quicker, the Reds save that run, and they, I'm not saying they win that game, but they at least extend the game to give them a chance. But it's like everything that can go wrong for the Reds is continuing to go wrong during this stretch. They have lost 4 straight. They are 4 games back in the division, right? They are 3 games back in the wild card. And look, who gives a rip about the wild card? Who gives a rip about the division right now? They just have to find a way to put an end to this 4-game losing streak. Keep in mind, this is around the time last year where they lost 11-12 and then ended up fighting the rest of the season to dig themselves out of that hole. The Reds had a winning April this season. They had a winning April last year. The Reds had a losing May in 2024. They're very well on their way to having a losing May in 2025. Do you know last year the Reds would go on to have a winning June and a winning July? I mean, think about it. If you have winning records in 3 of the first 4 months of the season, you would think you'd be sitting pretty, right? Last year, the Reds, because of that dropping 11-12 stretch, that was such a devastating blow that they never bounced back from that. So sure, the Reds could start to play better at some point. They can have winning records in the month of June and July like last year. But they had winning records in June and July last year, and it was that losing 8 straight, losing 11-12 in that stretch that buried them. They've lost 4 straight. You got 2 more with the Atlanta Braves, and then you go 3 games at Houston. And yeah, I see people on social media trying to be happy about, Roger says they were 9-18 in May of 2024. I see people, on social media doing this whole, the Cincinnati Reds, at least, they have Hunter Green on the mound tonight. Yes. And by the way, this is not a shot at Hunter Green, but the pitching's not the problem. You played 10 innings last night and lost 2-1. It's another one of those games where we should be talking about how the Reds held the Atlanta Braves to 1 run. And instead, we're talking about the Cincinnati Reds who held the Braves to 2 runs. I'm sorry. If you hold the Atlanta Braves to 2 runs, that's a good day at the office. That stretch where they lost 3 straight 1-0 games? 3. I mean, can you imagine it? That's so tough to do, to hold an opponent to 1 run or less for 3 straight games. And we didn't even talk about that because this horrible offense got shut out for 3 straight games. Like it's tough to get shut out for 3 straight games. It's almost as tough to hold an opponent to 1 run or less for 3 straight games. And you lose 2-1 in extras last night. And yeah, Roger, I see that, Matt McClain took the blame. Yeah, he did. I'm not beating up on Matt McClain. It's just unfortunate that the offense is so bad that the margin for error out in the field is so tight that I think the pressure is getting to him too. I do think that a lot of times some of these errors that this defense is making and the mistakes that they're making is because they feel the pressure of knowing that they have to be perfect every time that ball leaves the bat of the opponent, whether it's on the ground or in the air. They have to be perfect the second they touch that ball because they know the margin for error is so slim that there's no way to bounce back. They're not going to score runs right now. And it's frustrating. This Reds offense, I don't get it. They embarrass me because I crack this mic and start defending them and bragging about how good this offense is and how talented these individual hitters are. But these individual hitters are nowhere to be found. Matt McClain, I feel bad. I don't want to beat up on him for that thing last night because you know what? You should be able to make a mistake like that and still feel confident that the offense can win you games. But no, that technically did lose them the game. But like the point is this offense is no good. Against good teams, this offense is no good. You want to beat up on a bad Orioles team and put up 24 runs and act like this is a good offense? Shame on me. I apologize to my listeners for that. I use those inflated numbers from that game to convince you, or try, I don't think you ever bought anything I said anyways, to convince you that this was a good hitting team. They're not. They're not. And I don't know what the fix is. Earlier today on Off the Bench, Jake and Elliot just went in on Nick Krall, and I don't think Nick Krall is ever going to win President of Baseball Operations of the Year. Is that an award? Do you get an award for President of Baseball Operations of the Year? Is that a thing? Whatever award you get for the front office, you know, he's not a GM. That's Brad Meter. But you know, Nick Krall is kind of the face of this rebuild over the years, right? I don't know how to assess Nick Krall's position with this team. The whole reason that we're mad that the Reds are not performing well is because we have expectations. And the reason we have expectations is because of the talent that's on this roster and the talent that was in the system. And the reason we have that talent on the roster and the talent in the system is because of Nick Krall. And that's why I have a hard time blaming Nick Krall for everything. People have to bury Nick Krall because this is all he got us in the offseason. Guys, Nick Krall doesn't own this baseball team. I think if I've talked to Nick Krall on many occasions, I really do like Nick Krall. I think my biggest problem in this industry is I don't like meeting people because then it makes it really difficult to be super critical of them. And that makes me unprofessional, I guess, if you will. But I just have a very hard time fully putting him in the spot where I'm blaming him. If it was up to him, he would go get every big name free agent you can imagine. You know, like this idea, let's type this in. Who is the general manager for the Los Angeles Dodgers? Let's look this up. Dodgers GM. Let's look at it. So Dave Roberts is the manager, obviously. I need to look who the general manager is. Come on, Google. You could do better than that. General manager. There we go. Dodgers. Come on, Google. You're letting me down here. Brandon Gomes. There we go. Thank you. Brandon Gomes is in his 9th season as the executive vice president and general manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Everyone give a round of applause to Brandon Gomes. Brandon is just doing amazing work with the Dodgers, right? Brandon went to Shohei Ohtani and said, look, I know Los Angeles is just a crap hole. No one loves Los Angeles, you know? No one thinks about living in Los Angeles. In fact, it's really bad. And you know, we're going to give you got to live in Los Angeles and we're going to give you a ton of money. And I hope that that's enough. I hope that you could stomach making a lot of money and living in Los Angeles, playing baseball, winning World Series. Will you sign? Yes. Oh my God. I can't believe Brandon Gomes got that deal done. Brandon Gomes didn't get a deal done. The Dodgers is the Dodgers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to sit there and act like, you know, when you got Mookie Betts and you got, you know, every big name in the sun that you could think of. Gomes doesn't have to work hard as general manager of the Dodgers. He has a blank checkbook and he just goes around to every free agent. How much you want? All right, sign here. All right, Dodger blue, baby. Let's go. I feel for Nick Krall. This idea that Nick Krall's a bad general manager. Like, let me ask you, like, the Dodgers, do they have a better GM than the Reds? You're going to say yes. And I understand that. He's the general manager of a team that wins 90, 100 games every year, just coming off a World Series. I understand why you say that he's a better GM than Nick Krall, but they're not running the race from the same starting block. How do we know? I don't know if Nick Krall's a good GM or not. I think he is a good GM. And the reason I think that Nick Krall, who's technically the president of baseball operations, Brad Meter's the GM, the reason I think that he's pretty solid at what he does is because we're pissed off that this team's not living up to expectations. And the only reason you have expectations is because you have enough good quality players to make you believe that there's something there. And the reason that we believe that, like, Nick Krall does not have an unlimited budget. Nick Krall doesn't have a budget. Nick Kroll has a horrendous ownership group that cares more about investing into sushi bars in right field. Shout out to Mark Schlemmer on that one. That was always his big line. R.I.P. I miss Schlemmer, right? Like, he would be just absolutely laying in this team right now. They care more about investing into sushi bars in the outfield and, we're going to put up a nice little park for the kids to play in. Why do you need a damn park at Great American Ballpark? The kids should be watching the damn baseball game. Why do they need a slide at Great American Ballpark? Sit your ass down, eat your overpriced hot dog and popcorn, and enjoy the game. Why do we need, I don't care. The money that you spent on that stupid slide at Great American Ballpark could have been used for a much better outfield. Stay on track, Kinner. Stay on track. Nick Kroll, it's not fair to put all the blame on him. This team has this team has good players on it. This system has very good players in the system because of the way that they have drafted and the way that they have developed, the way they've restructured money and the way they've invested into the farm system. The Reds have had, for the longest time, the Reds had one of the worst farm systems of baseball, and they made it. Like during that first rebuild in the mid-2010s, they changed their approach to how they invested into their scouting and recruiting department. They put a ton of money into their overseas scouting department, so they're going out and scouring the country for the best talent in the world. They've improved the system from top to bottom. They have talent all over the place, young talent. I mean, you have your Ellie De La Cruzes, your Matt McClains, your Christian Encarnacion Strands, your Spencer Steers, all those guys. Obviously, you want to talk about the Noelvi Martes, the Reese Hines. Let's talk about the pitchers and Burns. I mean, Burns is obviously the number one prospect. Rhett Lauder. Chase Petty. I know Chase Petty got rocked when he was called up last week. He should not have been called up. He was called up prematurely. But the bottom line is, these are all super talented pieces. Who gets credit for that? Nobody. The pieces that make up the system that make you feel excited about the talent that's coming up is because of the general manager. And getting mad at the general manager because he didn't go out and sign Barry freaking Bonds in the offseason is stupid and idiotic, because you know damn well he has no money to do it. It's not his team. It's not his money. Hey, Nick Kroll, go get players to improve this roster. Okay. I need money to do that. Well, just see if you can convince them that Skyline is just really, really good, and maybe that'll get them to sign. It's not, I don't know how you gauge what a good general manager is in baseball. I don't think Nick Kroll's a bad one. I don't. But like last night, the game's done and everyone's yelling at Nick Kroll, and I'm like, what the hell? You have Austin Hayes, who's out. You have Noelvi Marte, who's out. You have Matt McClain, who I don't know what the hell's happening with him. Right? You have, some of the hottest hitters that they had for weeks have gone completely cold now. I don't know what you expect of this team when it comes to that. I'm not defending the losing. I think fans need to be more critical of players. At a certain point, you got to look at Matt McClain and say, what the hell's your problem, dude? Hitting 160 since coming back. I mean, you great numbers your rookie year, missed all of last year, got off to a hot start, multiple home runs in the first week of the season, and then go on a short little IL stint and have hit 160 cents. Are you still hurt? Did you just forget how to swing a bat? It's okay to be critical of Matt McClain. He's paid money. Be critical of him. I was critical of Ellie De La Cruz when he wasn't playing well. Everyone's like, Terry Francona, I thought he was supposed to have this. I thought this team was supposed to be better. What's going on, Terry Francona? How about instead of getting mad at Terry Francona, you get mad at your superstar face of the franchise, Ellie De La Cruz, because he doesn't know how to field a damn ground ball. At a certain point, you got to look at these Major League Baseball players and question how you can't hit a ball and how you can't field a ball. Why we look at Nick Kroll and blame him, why we wanted to blame David Bell in years past, and I am very guilty of that. I'm not passing blame on that. I was that guy too. At a certain point, you got to look at the players and just ask them, can you suck a little less? Can you play a little better? Can you produce more than one run? Is what it is at this point. The lineup for tonight. By the way, Reese Hines called up from AAA Louisville finally. I mean, Hines was crushing the ball in the minors. We'll see if that can carry over to tonight, making the season debut with the Reds coming up. TJ Friedel will get the start in center field and bat leadoff. Matt McClain at second, batting second. At shortstop and batting third is Ellie De La Cruz. Gavin Lux will be the DH tonight, and he'll bat fourth. At third base and batting fifth is Santiago Espinal. Back at first base tonight and batting seventh is Spencer Steer. Batting sixth is Spencer Steer. Batting seventh and behind the plate tonight, catcher Tyler Stevenson. Left fielder batting eighth, Hurtubise back in the lineup. Oh my gosh. And then Reese Hines in right field batting ninth. So one more time, Friedel, McLean, De La Cruz, your 1, 2, and 3 hitter. Lux, Espinal, and Steer, your 4, 5, and 6. And then Stevenson, Hurtubise, and Hines, your 7, 8, and 9. And Spencer and Hunter Green on the mound for the Cincinnati Reds. Reds, Braves, game 3. Hunter Green on the mound. 6:45 coverage begins with a 7:15 first pitch right here on Dayton's radio, home of the Reds, 1410 ESPN Radio. I appreciate you guys tuning in and hanging out with us each and every day. Shout out to our sponsor, Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits, with you every day from 3 to 5. Until tomorrow, it's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Enjoy the Reds later tonight. Hopefully we talk about a Reds win on tomorrow's show.